I call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning. Sorry. I call to order the meeting of the Planning and Zoning Commission for the City of Apache Junction. The date is Tuesday, November 9th. The time is now 7 p.m. I invite you to stand with me and recite the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Right, thank you. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Barker.
Here.
Commissioner Begeman.
Here.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Here.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Here.
Chairman Heck.
Here.
Commissioner Cross.
Here.
Commissioner Gage.
Here.
All present. We have a quorum, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, next item on the agenda is consideration of approval for this evening's agenda, along with the minutes of the meeting of October 12th, 2021. Do I hear a motion to accept the agenda and the minutes?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented and approve the minutes from October 12th, 2021 regular meeting.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion. Do I hear a second?
Second.
A second, I have a second. Roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, there are no public hearings scheduled for this evening. There is no old business scheduled for this evening. There are two items of new business scheduled for this evening. The first is item 21-610. That's election of the chair and the vice chair. So I will begin those proceedings. All right, so I'm call for a motion to open the nominations for the chairperson position.
So moved.
Yes. I'm sorry?
She moved and I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Okay, a roll call, Rudy, sorry.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
very good, thank you. So I will now call for nominations for the chairperson position.
Chair, I
Yes.
nominate Peter Heck for the position of chair.
Second.
Very good. Wait, we won't do that yet. I call for another nomination for the position. I'll ask a second time for nominations for the chairperson position. Ask a third time for nominations for the chairperson position. Okay, and now I ask for a motion to close the nominations.
I move to close the nominations.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion and a second. Roll call, Rudy?
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, so I now call for a motion to approve Peter Heck as the first nomination for the chairperson position. Do I have a motion?
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Very good, thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion and a second. Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman. You are still the chair.
Very good, very good. You all are laughing, I know.
Out of
there's a reason.
school.
All right, thank you. All right, now we'll do selection of the vice chair position. So I call for a motion to open the nominations for the vice chair position.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Okay, a motion and do I have a second? I have a second. So I call for a roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman.
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell.
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey.
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Very good, thank you. All right, I will now call for nominations for the vice chair position.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
I
yes,
nominate Vice Chair Hanchey for Vice Chair.
very good, thank you.
I'll second.
We don't do that yet, we don't do that yet, I still have to do nominations. So I will ask again for another nomination for the vice chair position. I will ask a second time for another nomination for the vice chair position. And I will ask a third time for the nominations for the vice chair position. All right, hearing no other, then I will ask for a motion to close the nominations.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Barker,
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage.
Yes.
Congratulations, Vice Chair Hanchey, you're still the Vice Chair.
Do we need to do a vote on that, actually, or not?
Oh, is that just a closing?
Yeah.
That was close.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Closing.
You're not the Vice Chair
Not
yet.
sorry.
Sorry.
It could change in the next
could.
30 seconds.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Can we just vote to make things the same way they were?
Nope.
All right, so I'll now call for a motion to approve David Hanchey for the vice chair position.
So moved.
I have a
Second.
motion and a second. Roll call, Rudy?
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker.
Yes.
Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner Cross.
Sure. Yes.
Now, congratulations.
Now,
Thank
all
you.
right, very good.
You have our distinct condolences.
Thank you.
I was going to say seamlessly and flawlessly. Good job. Almost flawless.
Almost, yeah, that's a,
Yeah, that's about as convoluted a process as I've ever seen.
well, you just have to, open and
Yeah.
close all these different
Yes.
components, yeah. Okay, thank you very much. So the next item of new business is item 21-611, which is presentation and discussion on conflict of interest, open meeting law, public record law, parliamentary procedures, and code of conduct by our city attorney.
I think it was listed as conflicts. Am I mistaken?
No, code of conduct.
Oh, okay.
Yes, code of,
However you want to do it. Code of conduct, let's start there. Okay.
Which color is that one?
Yellow.
Yellow.
The one in the back.
I found,
see, that's why we have colors.
good, I'm not colorblind. My reading sucks.
Well, good evening
Thanks, sir.
and welcome. And thank you for volunteering again. And congratulations to the two members who got reappointed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
You are the most active board, I must say, that we do. So you have down that procedure we just did pretty well. Other boards don't do it as smoothly. So congratulations. Okay, once again, we're going to go through this, and we've been through it. Council wants me to do this every year with you. Larry and Rudy's seen this two times already. So they can probably leave or fall asleep.
Come back half an hour.
Matt's falling asleep now. So the code of conduct. This document was passed and adopted by council on March 5th, 2019. This document initially was 12 pages long. And it got cut down by council, and now it's 4 pages long, or it was back in 2019. And it hasn't been amended since, so there's nothing I can change in this, whereas the other documents are mine. But this one is council's. But these are the rules that council would like everybody to follow, all board and commissions, as well as council members. And I'm not going to read every single line. We can go through the more prominent ones, the ones that need to be discussed. First one's act in the public interest. You shouldn't be here for personal reasons. You shouldn't be here to help someone out if they come before the board. That's totally improper. You're here to act in the public interest. That's why council put you on this commission. And they want to have it so that they get a recommendation from you that they can rely on and they can trust when they actually make a bigger decision. Now, of course, with conditional use permits, that's a little different because those have to be appealed to council. That's not automatic. So those, in a way, are very important because that's your decision. Unless it's appealed, that stands. So there can't be any kind of personal assistance given to anybody when a CUP comes to you. Comply with the law, that's pretty standard. Follow the law. Professional conduct, treat people with respect. That's really what this paragraph really means. And it also means don't do anything that is an appearance of impropriety in public, on Facebook. We'll get to Facebook. But the appearance of impropriety is very important. Don't use your official capacity to benefit anybody or to assist people in an election. That's coming up too. And I got to bring that up because in 2022, we're having a very fascinating election. Public meeting and due process, that's pretty standard. As I recall, a lot of this, well, one of the big ones was the use of cell phones. That one probably took an hour, as I recall, during those 4 separate meetings. And we went back and forth on that, whether you should have one, whether you can keep it on vibrate, whether you can put a tune on it. Depends what the tune was, I suppose. But I don't think I've heard cell phones go off in here in a while, so I congratulate you for that.
Speaking of that.
Advocacy. You don't lose your First Amendment rights by being appointed to this commission. So what does that mean? That means you can still talk about things that you believe in strongly. You just should not use your influence as a P&Z member to do that. So that means like a Facebook thing, for example. If you know an item's coming up or has been continued and now there's going to be an item that you would like people to be here, you really shouldn't be talking about it on Facebook. Especially when you put your name down and people know who you are, even though the Facebook address or email address may not show who you are, but people know who you are, because maybe sometimes people put their picture next to their email or their Facebook address. And you certainly shouldn't be saying, okay, I'm going to vote this way, and I think I got 3 other votes. That, of course, would be awful if anybody did that. That's pretty obvious. But I'm still pointing it out because we are coming up on an election year, and there may be candidates that you like in the local election or even the federal or the state, and it would be inappropriate to say, as a planning and zoning member, I endorse the following. I don't think you should be doing that. You could say that in your personal name, but not with Planning and Zoning Commission listed after your name. That, I think that's inappropriate. Yes, sir.
So, last election cycle, I asked you about this, but I put one of Commissioner Barker's signs in my yard, and you said that's okay.
That's okay.
Where is the line between putting, Robin Barker's sign in my yard and what you just said, that you can't go out and advocate for someone while you're sitting up?
I know you told some other people, no, I'm not going to use your sign, sorry. I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Okay? Man, you guys can crack a smile on that one. The line is, if it's a personal matter, it's your personal home, people probably know who you are and where you live, but you're not putting out there, hey, I'm a planning and zoning member, and I'm endorsing her.
Okay.
You're not doing that. You're not stating that. Now, just putting your sign in front of your house, that's a First Amendment. You have a right to do that. Just don't put endorsed by the owner of this house, who happens to be a planning and zoning member. Don't add that to the sign.
Gotcha, thanks.
That would not be good.
Clears it up for me.
Joel, kind of along those same lines, we have, I'll call it a homeowners association where I live, and we have meetings periodically, and I have been asked on a couple of different occasions about a development going on in town, and as long as I keep the information general and not giving a opinion on what's going to happen, I felt free to give general information on that. Is that appropriate?
Well, generally speaking, if it's an item that's coming up, someone says, hey, what about those condos at such and such street? How are you going to vote? I don't think you should say anything in public about that. And I think if you haven't had the meeting yet, my opinion is you should just withhold. Say, you know what, you can come to the meeting, it's on this date. You can speak if you like, but right now, I'm not going to give any opinion on that.
Okay.
That's what I think you should do, but some other people have a different opinion. And how far can you go with that? If at that HOA meeting you said, hey, I'm going to vote yes, and I know 3 others are, and I'm going to advocate that the rest of the P&Z does too, I don't think that's appropriate. Now, if it's something that's already been decided by all of you, and it's gone to council and it's already been voted on, I think it's fair game.
We've had a couple of potential developments come up right next to our property, and I was asked about those. And at the time, I had general information. They never came before us. They kind of died on the vine. So that was the kind of question that was asked.
If they weren't scheduled and you haven't talked to these 2 gentlemen and they haven't told you, oh yeah, that's coming up, I think you can talk about it, but if you heard the information confidentially with Larry or Rudy or another staff member, and with me as the city attorney, that's confidential, then no, you should not be discussing that.
Okay.
Non-interference with non-interference with and treatment of staff. Rudy and Larry have probably, I keep joking about this, but it's really not a joke. They have hundreds of years of experience. Not, yeah, especially after these sessions, right? They know what they're doing. They know what they do when they provide you a memo. So do their planners. They're teaching their planners how to do it, and they're doing an awesome job. They always have. They know what they're doing. So I would say, and there's an item at the bottom, criticism of staff. You may not like their recommendation, but respect their opinion. And you can still say, you know, I thank you for your opinion. Yeah, you know, I don't think that should be 10 stories, so I know the zoning allows it, but I'm gonna vote no. You can do that. But they know how to present a case legally. And I think to question their expertise is a mistake. I don't think you should do that. But you don't have to agree with the recommendation. Gifts, favors, or other benefits. Well, this one doesn't happen too often, but say someone has a case before you and it's in 3 days. They say, hey, let's go to the Cardinal game tonight. Let's do that. We got great tickets. How many of you are going to go? Probably all of you, right? That sounds like a fun time.
Darn right.
But if it's, the general rule is in Arizona, and it hasn't been changed, is if it's $25 or more in value, that's a gift. That's an illegal gift. I would think most Cardinal game tickets are probably more than 25. So you probably shouldn't do it.
Well, this season it is.
This season it definitely is, yes.
Now, Diamondbacks, you should be able to get
Yeah, they're free.
100 people there for free.
Free parking too.
Yeah, VIP parking nonetheless.
And hot dogs.
Yeah.
Meeting distractions, we've kind of talked about that a little bit with cell phones. Body language also. If you're not speaking, you don't like what someone's saying, if you make a face, well, that's going to show up on TV. That's going to show up to people that are sitting. That's happened many times in the number of years I've been here. Be careful with that.
No eye rolling.
No eye rolling, correct.
No, that is the key. Do
Especially
not roll
if-
your eyes.
But my eye itches.
Especially if Matt he's got a, he's zooming in on your face, because he can do that, by the way.
It does it a lot.
I got called on.
Influence elections, we've already talked about that. Be careful with that, especially next year. Communicating with litigants. If we're in litigation, and you want to talk to that person, you can talk to them, but be careful what you talk about. If you talk about the litigation, that could be harmful to the city, especially if you're asked to be a witness in litigation. That could be difficult for the city, and you would put the city at risk, possibly, depending on what you say. Attendance at meetings. All of you come to the meeting, so this is really not a big issue, but remember, if you miss 3, and they're unexcused, meaning you didn't call staff, and they said, okay, noted that you called, then that's counted as that's 1 point against you. You get 3 chances, and then council can actually pull you off this commission. And by the way, that has happened. In my time here, that's probably happened, at least 2 times, if not 3.
On planning and zoning?
Yes. General rules of decorum, that's just standard. Listen to people, be respectful. We'll get to parliamentary procedure, but when you want to speak, you are supposed to ask the chair, Mr. Chair, and then you're given the floor. Don't interrupt someone who's got the floor. Wait till that person's done, and then ask the chair to speak. That's how it's supposed to happen. It doesn't always happen that way, and it's not always perfect. And sometimes maybe you don't need that, but if you have a contested hearing and you have 40 or 50 people here, I would suggest that you keep that decorum. Because if you're talking over each other, it's very difficult to pick up what's going on, and then the public can't hear, and then people get angry, and it's not good. Incompatibility of office. This means you can't be on this board at the same time you're on another one where there's going to be a conflict. So the biggest one is Board of Adjustment. You can't be a Board of Adjustment member and a P&Z member at the same time, because Board of Adjustment, they handle zoning interpretations as well as variances. Well, the person might say on Monday night, that's their night, they granted someone a variance. Then the next time is your night, and now they're here before you on a zoning case, and it is related to the variance. Be careful that, it's not going to happen, but if it does, or if you think it's happening, you can talk to me about it. But that's definitely an incompatibility of office. Okay, I think that's it for the yellow pages. Next, conflicts. Now that color is a bit off. I like that color, but orange is what you should see. Okay, what is it? Object of the conflict of interest statute is to remove or limit the possibility of personal influence which might bear upon a public official's decision. The purpose is to prevent self-dealing by public officials and public employees. The financial interests of public officials or employees must not conflict with the unbiased performance of their public duties. One cannot serve 2 masters with conflicting interests. It is imperative that a public official have no personal interest that might clash or conflict with that of the state. So, what does that mean? Well, there's different kinds of conflicts of interest. The most common one is a substantial interest conflict of interest. The question in your mind should be, if you vote on something, is there a pecuniary or proprietary interest that you're going to gain? So pecuniary is money, and proprietary is a property interest of some kind. And it doesn't just mean you, by the way. It's your relative, too. If that affects your relative, and that relative is defined on page 6 under H, any individual within 2 degrees of kinship, including spouse, child, child's child, parent, grandparent, brother, or sister of whole or half-blood, and their spouses, and the parent, brother, sister, or child of a spouse. So that's the test. Do you or a relative have a conflict if the vote is going to be taken and you're going to vote on it? Why should you care? There's different reasons. There's criminal, there's civil ramifications. There's also, you could be removed from office too. And the item that is voted on could be declared void by a court of law, and it would have to be all done all over again. And there could be litigation involving that, especially when there's property interests, because property is money also. There are remote interests, meaning, yeah, you have a conflict. However, it's so remote that the law says it doesn't count. And I think I've been through this list before, but the biggest one, the most common one, is top of page 4 under J, class interest. If there are 10 or more in the class, that means you are one of those 10 or more. If you are, there's no conflict. And I know you probably have heard this before, but we had a church that wanted to have 25 additional feet of steeple height, and a member of the council happened to be a member of that church. And the question is, could that member vote on that the planning item? I think it was going to be a plan development amendment. The answer is yes, because that person, the church had 10 or more people in it, and so that person was one of those 10. And it passed. So, what should the public official do if they believe they have a conflict? I think you know what you're supposed to do. Call me up if you think you have something and say, well, I'm not sure I should vote on this. What do you think? And I will write you an opinion. You tell me the facts, I will write the opinion. It gets filed with the city clerk. It's a public record. So that if someone comes up to you from the public saying, hey, you can't vote on this, you got a problem. Say, no, the city attorney said I can, and here's a copy of the memo that is filed with the city clerk. So you're clear, because you justifiably relied on the city attorney. And not just because it's me, but because the statute says city attorney. So if I'm wrong, nothing's going to happen to you. Those things under letter Roman numeral 5 under page 2, those things aren't going to happen to you. I'm going to be the one in trouble if I'm wrong. Now, the decision still might be stricken by a court, but you've relied on an opinion, a legal opinion, and that keeps you out of trouble. That's if you want to vote on it. If you don't want to vote on it, then what you're supposed to do is let the chair know beforehand, before the meeting, say, hey, I'm going to declare a conflict. So when you read the title, I would like you to recognize me. I will declare a conflict, and I will walk out of the room. Now, when you declare the conflict, you are not supposed to talk to anybody about it. You're not supposed to influence the item at all. And that means witnesses, that means members of the public, and that especially means the board. What I suggest you do is go back and watch the events in Matt's office. He loves the company, by the way. He really does. He's alone there a lot. Okay, I think that's it for the orange pages. If there's any questions? We go to the purple copy, open meeting law. Well, it's blue, I guess, on, wow, that is not purple, is it?
It's not.
Okay, open meeting law. What's this all about? It is the public policy that meetings of public bodies be conducted openly and that notices and agendas be provided for such meeting which contain such information as is reasonably necessary to inform the public of the matters to be discussed or decided. The open meeting law was first enacted in 1962, and basically it's been the law ever since, and there's been many amendments to it under Arizona law. So what does this public policy really mean? It means transparency. I hate that word. It's so overused, especially the last 10 years. But that's what it is. The public has a right to know what's going on, with some exceptions. Why should you care? A through F tells you why. And there's all sorts of things could happen if you don't, and you blow it on the open meeting law. It applies when there's a quorum. So that means in your case, 4 or more. And you are one of the committees that's considered a public body on page 2, under E. You are a recommending board to the city council. So you are definitely a public body. Now, going up to D, meeting. What's a meeting? This is a meeting. This is an easy one. What if you want to go to, I don't know, the Park and Rec Commission, and you want to watch something that's going on the dog park? Can you go as a whole? Sure you can. Should you sit right there with the 7, right there together in that second row with 7 people together? No, you should not. If those gentlemen know you're going to some meeting or some social gathering, they're going to post it. They're going to post it like it's a meeting so the public knows you're all there together. That doesn't mean you're going to talk about anything, but at least the public will have the notice of a meeting of a quorum. That is the legal requirement.
So we have a training coming up in
Yes.
December, so that would be considered a meeting,
That will be posted.
and that would be posted as a meeting, so we don't have to avoid each other at that meeting.
No, but you should not talk about anything that is on the agenda
Yeah.
that you're going to be seeing pretty soon here. Well, I think before that meeting, I don't know if it's going to be before, but anything that's coming up after that, or a vote, a potential vote, do not talk about those items that might be coming up, that you know that are coming up. And I'm going to steal Larry's thunder here a little. He's driving a van, a 15-person van, I believe. Why not?
To go do a funeral thing for my uncle. in San
Oh, I'm
Diego.
sorry, that Rudy's driving the van.
Well, Rudy could be driving the van. We were thinking about getting a van, so we're not taking 15 cars out there. So we could get the Park and Rec van and see if we could do that, but, because it just seems silly to have 15
Yeah,
cars driving
we
out
have
there.
carpooling.
Yeah, I think
that's-
carpooling is okay.
And so that's considered a meeting,
Yeah.
even
We
in
would
the
have to,
van.
we'd
As
have,
long as we didn't have more than 4 in the carpool.
3.
we have to, no more than 3.
Four-
Correct.
four.
But if we had 10 people in that van, that would have to be considered, there'd have to be public notice, so we were all driving down together, is that?
Well, it'd be considered the meeting time, start time of when you drive, yes.
Yeah.
And even if your
So
car.
we haven't figured out the logistics
Okay.
in total, how that would work. It just seems like we ought to be able to try between this board and the Board of Adjustment. That's 14 of you.
3 can go in the carpool, 3 can go in the van.
There you go, so,
You got two members of the Board of Adjustment and 2 members of this board. That's 4.
okay.
So,
Notice. Notice is easy. There's a document that gets posted, and it says, notice of the meeting, the date, the time. Doesn't have to have the agenda, but it does have to have the notice of the meeting. The agenda is also posted as a commendation. There's an interesting new case I want to tell you about. It's actually shocking to me. Welch versus Cochise County. It's on the top of page 3. What happened in that case, Cochise County is a small county. It's less than 250,000, so they have 3 board members, Board of Supervisors. One of them decided, hey, I want to be the JP, the Justice of the Peace. So the board said, okay, well, let's recruit. You put in for it, and we'll vote on it. So they did, and they actually stopped the recruiting because he mentioned to the other 2 members that he wanted to have the job. That job pays probably between $75,000 to $90,000 down there. It's based on population. So there's your pecuniary issue. And he voted on he voted himself in. Can't do that. That's number one. Open meeting law, they set the date for the vote and the time at whatever it was, 7 o'clock. They didn't have the vote then. They waited an hour. And so that became an issue for the Court of Appeals and the Supreme Court, actually, because it went all the way to the Supreme Court. There was also a conflict of interest because this person, the person who challenged it, had a pending matter in the Justice of the Peace Court and didn't want this individual to be the judge. And this individual knew about that and didn't disclose the issues. So there was a disclosure issue on a conflict of interest.
Wow.
It's amazing to me that case went that far, but that is a Supreme Court case, Arizona Supreme Court case. Two big items, conflict of interest. We don't get cases like that too often on conflicts or on open meeting law. That's why I added it, and it's a very recent case. Okay, agendas. Agendas have to state what you're going to be talking about. And, sometimes I interrupt, say, I'm sorry, you're off the agenda. And I hate doing that, but I have to do that. That is my job, to let you know you're kind of outside of the law here. Don't start talking about, racing down certain streets when it's not on the agenda or whatever issue you come up with. You're not supposed to do that. The public has a right to know what you're going to speak about, and that's the purpose of that agenda law. I think that is really it.
You don't like to talk about minutes? You used to love to talk about minutes, and
Yeah, well, that was a sore spot some years ago. That was a nasty sore spot. And the rule is, do you have to have minutes? Yes. But in what form? Well, right now, you're being televised. These could be the minutes, technically. That's what the law allows. Now, do they have to be written out, typewritten, with every single period and comma? No, they do not have to be verbatim. I was challenged on that by certain people, and it went to the Attorney General's office, and the Attorney General agreed with me. So they don't have to be verbatim. Is it convenient to have minutes that are verbatim? Absolutely convenient, but the law doesn't require it. We used to have a city clerk, an assistant city clerk, who was really, really good at taking minutes. And she wouldn't make them verbatim, but I'll tell you what, she made them close to verbatim so that when you looked at the old records, you didn't have to really guess about what the conversation was about. She went above and beyond. She really did. And so when I let management know, hey, I don't know how much time she spends on that per week. It might be 6 to 8 hours. I don't know what it is. But technically, we don't have to do that. So that practice ended.
Now, Joel, is that because we videotape the meetings, or it's just that doesn't even matter either? It's just what we're doing even here now would comply with the...
This complies because after this meeting, it gets put out on the internet. We have so much time to do it. And that's considered the meeting and the minutes, basically. It's all considered.
How long are they maintained?
There's a archives rule. I believe it's at least 3 years. So, and I think we keep them, that the city clerk is actually re-looking at those rules. So that is it on...
Yeah, because minutes, from my observation, have been extremely general.
And they can be, and all you have to say on the written ones, because when you approve them, if an action occurred, all you have to say is who was there, what was the vote, and were there any witnesses who came forward. That's the legal requirement.
Yep.
Now, if council didn't like that, they probably would have told the city manager, hey, we want to be more specific on that.
And we always have that as backup in case something happened to the video.
Sure. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Larry. That just added 10 minutes, but that's all right. I think that is about all I need to talk about on the purple pages.
Bill that 10 minutes to Larry's department.
Oh, he'll get even, don't worry. He always does.
He will. He's got zoning stuff to go over.
Okay.
Mike, thank you.
Parliament.
Are you ready?
Do you want to take a 10-minute break? Is that what you were saying?
No, I just wanted to,
15.
in case there are any questions or,
Parliamentary Procedure, green. So Henry Martin Robert was a soldier. He was sent back in the 1800s to a church meeting. His commanding officer didn't want to go, so he was sent. And it didn't go well. It was unstructured and it was out of control. So he started writing up rules that he felt were applicable to town hall type meetings. So that was in the 1800s. 1876 was the first version. So today we sit in 2021, I think we're on version 11 or 12. Yeah, so it's amazing how this has gone through time. Now, I will say, these procedures and policies, sometimes they have no application whatsoever to what you all do. In fact, if you tried to be a stickler on it, it just wouldn't work and it would be inefficient. The city code says the city attorney is the parliamentarian. So that means I get to interpret the rules and I get to say what applies and what doesn't. And I think you've seen that I try to keep it fairly informal. I try to, unless there's something that really has to go forward, procedural motion. But I try to keep it pretty informal because the rules, sometimes they just aren't applicable. They're really meant for fraternal order or legislatures or Congress, not really for cities and towns. In fact, some cities and towns across the country are making up their own rules, and they're disposing of Robert's rules. So someday we might be looking at that. I don't know. I don't think any cities. I think Phoenix has a rule book, but I think most cities and towns still use Robert's rules in a general sense. What are the goals? There's 7 of them. I'm not going to read all these. They're all really good goals, every single one of them. Everybody has a chance to make a motion. Everybody has a chance to speak. There's supposed to be respect throughout the rulemaking or the motion making. Acknowledgement from the chair is one of them also. So when you speak, you're supposed to have the floor. The motions are pretty easy to make. And just the general ones are listed on page 2. The last one is not really a motion, although someone might interpret it as being that's point of order. So what does that mean? That means if one of you thinks that another member is not complying with a motion procedure or is out of order or is off the agenda, you can interrupt, say point of order. And then the chair can recognize that person. Does the chair have to? No. Might be a little awkward if he doesn't, but does he have to? No. But if he does, it's like, okay, what is your point of order? And then the person explains it, and then you could actually have a discussion on it if you'd like. But it's up to the chair to decide whether that is really what's going on, and then the chair can correct what's going on. But the other motions, they're pretty easy to do.
Joel, just a procedural question. So, as I've heard this, I've been on other boards where I've had, this has been done. For example, let's say I'm looking for a motion on the acceptance of the agenda and the approval of the minutes from whatever. And can the person say, so moved? Or must they actually reiterate because I've been in before in other boards where they'll say, so moved, and then the second person can second that. Should they really reiterate the motion in full?
The way, if I were ruling on that, I'd say so moved is good enough for a second.
For a second, not for the.
Well,
initial-
for a motion, I'm sorry, yes.
Okay, all right.
And then the person could say, yeah, I second it. I mean, yeah, that, I would say you can do that.
Okay,
Robert's rules might say, no, you can't, and if you can't, well, then you have to amend by this rule, and then you have to substitute, but it's like, do you really want to go through that?
No.
No,
no.
you don't. You want to get the job done, move on to the business.
Right.
Got it. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
yeah.
Hey, Joe, can we back, or Larry, I'm sorry, can we back up to C, the middle paragraph? It says, in case of a tie vote, a proposed measure shall be considered defeated. The example that I have is say, for example, we have 6 commissioners present on a given night, and there's a tie vote. Does that mean that item fails, we move on to the next item, or does that mean somebody can make another motion and maybe there will be a majority vote?
That's a very good question, and yes, the chair can say, okay, we have a 3-3, the vote failed, I'll invite any more motions, and any more motions. Does anybody want to make another motion to see if there could be a tiebreaker motion? So yes, you can do that.
Okay, good question, yeah.
Okay. You know, there's another one that, it doesn't come up that often, but it has, where a motion's made for a certain, just say it's a zoning. Say it's a 4-3 in favor. Then someone the next day says, you know, boy, I really screwed up. I don't want to do that. So what you're supposed to do is you call one of those two gentlemen, say, okay, on the next agenda, I want to do a motion for reconsideration. And I want to have a vote on a motion for reconsideration. And that, you can do that. If you don't do it at the next meeting, then that is waived forever. That's what Robert's rule says. And I think the intent is that, hey, if you really realize you made a mistake, you should get to that quickly. You shouldn't have another week or two to figure it out. I think that's the intent behind it. And that did cause a problem with council one time on a hotel. And it was a 4-3 decision. I forget what the P&Z voted, I can't remember now. And there was a motion for reconsideration at the next meeting. So then they said, okay, that passed, and it went to another hearing. So it was done all over again. And it was a bit of a nightmare. And then the hotel didn't win. So then we got litigation threats and all sorts of things. But it's possible to do a motion for reconsideration. And if at that next meeting, if you don't get the second or it doesn't pass, then it's done. It's done, and so the first vote counts. Nomination of officers, you have this memorized. Excellent job. This follows exactly what you went through tonight, so. Okay. Blue. Public records. Public records and other matters in the custody of any public officer shall be open to inspection for any person at all times during business hours. The law serves to open government activity to public scrutiny. The core purpose of the law is to allow public access to official records and other governmental information so that the public may monitor the performance of government officials and their employees. This is another transparency thing. There are some exceptions. There are some really good exceptions, but generally speaking, people have a right to see what the government keeps as their records. So it's not just what we keep as our business records. It's also what you all are doing. If you're taking notes, what you're supposed to do is you're supposed to give these to Rudy, and Rudy's supposed to hold on to them for 3 years. And I'm not sure it's ever come up, but say someone doesn't get their zoning, and someone wants to see what notes you're taking because they saw you writing. They have a right to see that. They have a right to look at those notes, and if they saw you write something and then you shared it with another commissioner and they started laughing, then that person's going to say, oh, really? I want to see what's on there. You know, maybe you're drawing pictures of me. I don't know what you're doing, but if it's a personal thing that you're writing down, that will get redacted. So when they get the record, they're not going to see the personal information. But if it's related to the case, they absolutely will see it. So that's a type of public record that, and it's not just handwritten stuff or paper. It's text messages too, technically. Emails. So if you're texting somebody during the commission, or a member of the public is texting you, and you're texting back, and it relates to the vote or the discussion, technically, those emails, text messages, which, by the way, text messages are very, very difficult to get. We've been asked for those many times, and by the time the public record request comes in, the company says, I'm sorry, we don't have those anymore. So they don't really keep them sometimes, or they're in some weird cloud in a different world, and we'll never get them. We're supposed to try to get them, even if we have a third party keeping it. Excuse me. Okay, some people think they're cool when they say, oh, I did a FOIA on them and I got 1,000 pages. Well, FOIA sounds like a cool acronym, and it's Freedom of Information Act. Well, that's a federal law. That doesn't apply to cities and towns, except when the state law doesn't address the issue that they're trying to get. So if there's an issue out there regarding public records, and our state law doesn't apply or there's nothing that we could interpret from the state law, then we're supposed to go and look at federal law, FOIA law, to see if it's covered there. That's the only time it applies, and that is very rare. Why should you care? Well, there's a procedure to get public records, and there's bad things that happen when we don't provide them, especially in a timely manner. Okay, let's go to what's prompt disclosure. The process is the city clerk gets a request. I want all records on 1229 North Ocotillo. So that would go to the Development Services Department, it would go to the Building Department, and we'd have to produce those records. Well, what if there's 3,000 records on that address? What do we do? Is Rudy and Larry, if they're processing them, can they just say, you know what, that's too many. I don't want to do this. We're not going to do it. Well, that's rejecting it, number one. You got to have a good reason to do that. Or they say, you know, we've got so much going on, we don't have time to do that request. So we're going to put that aside for 6 weeks. That's not prompt disclosure under the statute. Of course, the legislature didn't define what prompt disclosure means, so judges have started doing that. And there's different things, and I put this in the language, I won't read it, except essentially, yes, you're supposed to drop everything as a public official. I am, because I will review documents if they need to be redacted or checked for private information. And it doesn't matter if it's 1,000 pages. I am supposed to, as long as it doesn't interfere with the operations of my office, I'm supposed to put that stuff aside and actually do the public record request and get it out promptly. What's prompt? It's not a day, it's not 2. Sometimes we get deadlines from people who say, okay, I want this and I want it by 5 o'clock on Friday. Well, they don't get to say that. However, if they don't get it, they might challenge us, and we might do it a week later and that might be appropriate depending on the volume of documents that we have. And a judge would look at all the circumstances and then decide whether it was prompt. If that person has an attorney and the judge decides, okay, yeah, you weren't prompt, and you know, I'm gonna award that attorney fee to that attorney because you weren't prompt, or you didn't do this quickly at all, you didn't give what you were supposed to. That happened to the city, at least I think it was 20 years ago, on a case that involved a shooting of an individual, and we settled with that individual. It was a very sad case, but the paper, I think it was the Republic, they said, hey, we're entitled to find out how much you paid that family, because that's public money. So at the time, there was a tort attorney, meaning injury to a person, and so we have a insurance company that appoints attorneys to handle those special cases. That attorney said, no, I don't have to give you that settlement agreement, that's confidential. In fact, Section 4 says this is confidential, and the plaintiff wasn't even going to disclose it. Doesn't matter. That document itself is public. So is the dollar amount. It was $1.6 million. That's how much they got paid. Luckily, most of that was covered by insurance. But of course, our premium went up for the next 15, 20 years. We're still paying on that case. There are exceptions. The case that talks about exceptions is actually, it's the first case cited, Carlson versus Pima County. That sets a balancing test. So if there's something that comes up, say somebody wants the layout of the police department and the types of weapons that officers are armed with and the type of caliber that we use. Well, if we have a public record that lists that, is that a public record? Yes. But that's an exception to the rule because that will endanger officers if we give it out. So we will say no to that public record request, and we have. We have gotten those requests before. You wonder why do they want to know that information? And, you know, we've been threatened. Oh, we're going to sue you if you don't give that to us. Well, go ahead, sue us, but we're going to win that one. Who can obtain the records? Anybody can. There's no restriction. They don't have to say why they want the records. We can charge a fee for commercial or for commercial and non-commercial. And there's some exceptions on that. If someone has a car accident, they can get the police report for free, so can their attorney. If they're victims of crime, they get the police report for free. Same with their attorney. And then there's miscellaneous case law that I have included. And some of you probably say, I'm not going to read this stuff. Some of these are pretty cool cases. And if you want a copy of any of these cases, I can definitely provide you a copy. And so, are there any questions? Remember to turn your notes into Rudy tonight. I know all of you took notes. I saw you taking notes.
I don't even have a pen.
Rudy does not want my brain.
Joel, you were going to mention something about, or something related to Facebook, because I know there had been I believe a city council member who had been typing up a narrative of the city council meetings, and I think posting that on Facebook, I think, or had been. So can you just clarify how Facebook plays into
Well,
this?
you're a member of the P&Z. That doesn't stop you from using Facebook. You could use it in your personal name, but you should not be using that in your official capacity as a planning and zoning member. So we kind of talked about that earlier.
Okay.
But
Oh, I see.
that's really what I was getting at.
Okay.
And anything that happens in public, if someone says, hey, let's summarize that and put it out on Facebook, there's nothing illegal about that. That can, I mean, some people don't want to watch the meeting and they just want to read Facebook. I don't understand that, but you'd think they'd want to watch get the real flavor
Yeah.
watching it. But some people don't have time and they just want to, Facebook might be their life. I don't know. But I have.
That's all social media, not just Facebook, right?
Correct, but Facebook's the biggest one that I know of,
Yeah.
or that I've experienced, let me put it that way. Anything else?
It
Well,
was
thank
always
you.
kind of interesting in previous communities. I would read about our meetings in the newspaper the next day or a couple of days later, and I'm beginning to wonder, did we attend the same meeting?
Exactly, that does happen. But if you have any questions, please call me. You all know my number, and I'll meet with you, whatever you'd like, and I'll get you the cases, whatever you want. And thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very
Thank
good.
you. All right, very good, thank you. Next item on the agenda, information and reports. Item 21-618, discussion on boards and commissions training workshop. Chapter.
Well, you all received some emails, correspondence about this. I think most everybody has signed up. I also sent kind of a follow-up, it's not mandatory. You may have a job, you may have, the council likes it if you go, but also understands other obligations. So if you are interested, just let Julie Christensen, our new admin, know. That's all.
Very good. Thank you. Okay. Director's report. We have two items. Item 21-613, discussion on how to access the Land Development Code online.
So I think even though you were all repeat offenders on the Plan Commission, we aren't, I think you have three-ring binders, some of you, to have the codes and all that. In today's day and age, if you want the most up-to-date code, we're being a lot more diligent about American legal publishing. So if you saw the marijuana ordinance come through here, it goes to the council, and then it gets posted online. So the most recent one, I'll see if this link works. Apparently not. The idea, maybe, well, who knows what it's going to do here. It's been kind of weird, but here we go. I don't know why it's doing this thing here. This is probably some software update, but so this was just a little tutorial. I think it was in your packet that says how you access the Land Development Code, and I'll click on that in a minute. But essentially, there's the 2 volumes in the city code. This is maybe just to be a refresher for you. Volume 2 is the Land Development Code, and there's 10 chapters in the Land Development Code. And you generally are working in chapters 1, 2, and 8. So 8 is the wireless communication. Our goal is to merge that into chapter 1 at some point. We've been talking about that forever, is to take the wireless code. Even though it's in the Land Development Code, it could easily be a chapter or an article within the zoning ordinance. So you can do search buttons in there if you're looking for things. And here's an example. If you're looking for Article 1-13 Design Standards, you do the search button and then it pulls that up. So again, we'll just go back here, see if these links are working. So this is the city webpage. So again, over here, the city regular code is all these chapters. If you're interested in that kind of thing. The boards and commissions where you're authorized is in chapter 2. General administration, fees, how we set our fees are in this. How the court animals, the building code is chapter 7. Chapter 9 is our code for code compliance, if you will, our health and sanitation code. And the trash ordinance is in there also. Recent changes in the noise code. So all these should be up to date. And then again, for the zoning code, we have those 10 chapters that were mentioned. And then most of your time as a commissioner, if you're trying to research something, again, call me or Rudy or Joel if you have a particular question, but that's how you get to it. And then I think the search button, you can do these search buttons in here and look for a key phrase, et cetera. So we use this, American Legal. There's other cities that use MuniCode. There's other cities that self-publish. We used to have big, huge 3-ring binders, and we'd have to keep replacing pages. I think for the city clerk, we keep 2 paper copies, and everything else is uploaded. So we're, as far as I know, everything is up to date, I believe. So that's the best way to find out if you have a question about the code. Are we good there? Just for, again, an FYI.
Very good. Okay, thank you. Next item, 21-616, the discussion on the zoning code update.
So Joel and Rudy could help me out here a little bit. We had a presentation about downtown a few meetings ago, and I happened to mention that, the zoning code, at least for downtown, we have the B3 district, and the zoning code is pretty much our only tool to, we have the general plan, and we have some policies in the general plan. If there's a zoning issue, we always go back to the general plan as part of our staff recommendation. Does some decision, does it comport with the general plan? But the zoning code is really the implementation tool primarily for the general plan. And we don't have any other implementation tool. I mean, we used to have tax increment financing, so if you had visions and goals, you could implement those through money, through funding. And the TIF was, the Tax Incremental Finance District was able to do the streetscaping along the trail, Phelps Drive, the north and south of that. So I guess the discussion is, as we update the zoning code, which we're going to work on, we've had some money in the operating budget. So even though we just worked on B3, doesn't mean it's always done, but all those other articles in the code, we're talking about updating, and we're putting out a request for proposals to consulting firms. We may do some in-house, we may do the consultant work on the harder ones like the sign code. But was that an eye roll? I'm not sure what that was.
That was an eye roll, I'm sorry.
Wow.
No, you've been had.
Oh, my.
Wait, hey, can we go back to that yellow handout again? Or the-
Sorry, Larry. Just so many times.
I
you
know, I know. So the zoning code, so if we were just talking about downtown and how do you shape a downtown, I think it always starts with master planning. So we did what we could in the general plan, but if we want to really try to guide what we want a downtown to be, then a master plan is the start, and then from there, that may come up with some ideas of how we might change the code. Through that process might be some suggestions on how to do that. But in Arizona, one way to do that is not just to have a B3 or have design standards, but you can do a plan that becomes really, you adopt it, and it becomes, you can put zoning parameters in what's called a specific area plan. So we have a general plan, but you can adopt, city council can adopt a specific area plan. So we could do that downtown master plan, and that could be not just a master plan, but also would have zoning power. And so I'm probably talking about the edge of my knowledge of this because it's a different animal for me. So I don't know if Joel or Rudy want to chime in on what a specific area plan is, but I think but you can basically adopt that downtown master plan as a specific area plan, and then it gives it zoning power to really kind of help you implement the plan. And it's a powerful tool. Some cities do that. I'm trying to think if the recent one I think I know about is when Queen Creek, they just annexed 3,700 acres. They did a specific area plan for that area south of the 24. They worked with the state land department, and there was no developer involved. But they did a specific area plan. So it wasn't just a broad brush general plan. It had some pretty detailed parameters and implementation. So I don't know if Joel, if I misstated anything or what your knowledge of that is. The city's never used that here, but I'm just saying, I'm not saying we will use it, but it is a tool that could help implement the plan, and it would have a lot more oomph behind it, if you will.
So how
Can
detailed?
you let Joel see? Let me
Joel,
see,
yeah, you-
Joel.
Mr. Chair, I told you he'd get even. I told you he would. In my 20-plus years here, I don't remember doing a specific plan. Rudy could probably say we've done a few, but I don't remember too many, and they weren't too extensive like Queen Creek's. Queen Creek's is definitely, they did that under the rug kind of and didn't give us notice, and that was kind of sneaky, but they did it. There's another thing called redevelopment plan also, and that's a type of specific plan. But there's not really too much zoning power in a redevelopment area or a redevelopment plan.
The closest we ever came to a specific area plan was our old CCD district, City Center District.
Yeah.
It was a commercial zoning district, but within it, within the CCD zone, it also had a little sign code, it had its own little parking code, it had its own design standards, and that was tied into one specific developer who was trying to create a downtown, and that developer went away, nobody ever implemented that code, or nobody ever really took advantage of that code, so it kind of went away.
And again, what I'm going off of is that purple maroon colored book that your friend Frank Cassidy put together. There's a whole thing in there about specific area plans. And so somewhere in Title IX, and I don't like the way Arizona does this, when you look up something, it only gives you that section. You can't see the whole, there's not a tree that you can follow to do that. So this is what a general plan should be, but I think there is somewhere, and I can get you the exact section on this, of what a specific area plan is. But, so this is in Title IX, but I Googled ARS specific area plan, and I know there's specific language in there, and I can get you that section that I have from Frank Cassidy's book that talks about specific area plans. So I'll try to answer your question, but again, I'm not an expert on the subject.
Right. So currently, we have a general plan that kind of outlines, and I've called it the purple blob in there in the general plan, the downtown development area. But it's not really called out very specifically what goes on in there. There's bullet points, I guess. So this specific area plan would differ from our existing general plan in that we actually lay out what we want it to look like instead of waiting for the developers to come and present their vision of what.
Yeah, it would still go through the same, again, all we did in the general plan is we looked back and said, hey, we did all these planning efforts, and from what I can tell, the only one that was a plan that somebody adopted or looked at was from, I think, the 90s, that it was a pretty color map thing. Everything else was just ASU product students. The DRIS, the Downtown Revitalization Implementation Strategy, was not a master plan. It basically looked at what can we do from Meridian Road to the Y, and we had 3 different zones, if you will, the suburban zone, the transition zone, and then the downtown core. And so it had strategies in there to improve the city, but it wasn't based on some master planning process. I mean, there was a process, but, so to me, the city may have had one downtown master plan. So our thought was, let's create a master plan. If we do it under this statute, and again, that's ultimately a council decision if they want to adopt it that way, but you could set yourself up to adopt it as a specific area plan, and then that plan has some zoning
Some design.
power to it.
Design
Yeah, and I'll get you more detail, or I can do a little more research on it. Again, I'm at the limit of my,
Okay.
I know it's out there, I know we've never used it, but it is a tool that would be, again, it would be more controlling, and that's really a policy decision of the council if they want something that specific, that controlling.
Right.
But I think depends on the involvement of the community and everybody's participation. You'd say, yeah, if we really want this to happen, we're going to have to be a little more specific as to how we make that happen. But by having a zoning district, again, what will help, I think, are some design standards. Our design standards are actually guidelines, so they're adopted by reference in the zoning code. And so Rudy's done his best job here for 15 years trying to get people to do that, but there's actually, ultimately, we get better design, but we can't say, oh, it all has to look like Harley Davidson. That was the original thought. All this stuff, we're going to create a theme here, and then you have someone come in and say, well, it really just says guidelines, and so we get the color palettes, we get the landscaping, but we don't get some architectural theme.
And continuity.
Yep. So I think part of this zoning code update is developing design standards. And you can still have different character zones within the city. Maybe we do have a character zone for the suburban and the transition zone in the downtown, but again, that's a lot of effort into it, but I think ultimately it'll be worth it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great direction to go, and it seems like now we kind of are in a position where we have to react to what these developers come in and present to us, as opposed to driving the bus on what the downtown's supposed to look like. So, that's just my observation on what I've seen in the last year, that stuff comes to us and we react to it. But it's just a piece of the puzzle. There's, a whole other bunch of pieces that have to fit together too. And it's,
Yeah, the two major tools are the general plan and a zoning ordinance. And then, again, even within a zoning ordinance, there's, traditional zoning ordinances that grew out of the 20s. And then there are, performance zoning was a kind of a fad that went on in the 80s, where if you got this many points, you could do this kind of development. And then you have the form-based codes that are more architecturally driven. That, again, maybe you have, the whole city has a general zoning like we always do, what has the different zonings and different districts, and you separate uses, but in the downtown, maybe just in the downtown, you'd have what's called a form-based code that is more architecturally oriented. So in those types of codes, and Mesa has tried this, other cities have tried it, you don't look at the use so much, you just look at what does it look like. It's not like Houston where they don't have zoning whatsoever and you have a church next to a brothel, but you have certain uses allowed in there, but whether you have, you're not separating uses totally where you have to have, you could have a light manufacturing in your downtown if, like we have talked about in our code, but what does it look like? What does the building look like? And do you want, ground floor retail and the second floor could be parking, and you could have residential above that or offices next to. So we can get you some examples of what a form-based code would. So I think those are options that the city has is, do they want to have a generalized zoning code for most of the city and then have something very detailed for the downtown? So maybe you don't go as far as the specific area zoning, the specific plan, but maybe you say, hey, we're going to do this hybrid code. And Phoenix has tried to do that where they have like an optional overlay district. So to avoid the 207 issues, they simply say, we have this zoning code, it's B whatever, and in this area, we've got this tool that you can take advantage of, and you'll sign a 207 waiver and say, hey, I want to use your overlay because it gives me more. So it's the cities, that's what they did to try to encourage some creativity in the zoning without saying, thou shalt be this new zoning district, and then they were worried about takings cases. So they just said, hey, we got this tool. And we've thought about that for these antiquated or mobile home RV parks. So, okay, there's this mobile home RV park there. Maybe we create a RVP PD tool that says, hey, if you want to redevelop your old RV mobile home park, here's a zoning overlay that you can just adapt it. And then we create some of those performance standards in there and say, yeah, we'll allow these tiny homes or container homes or whatever it might be because it's going to be better housing than, a 60-year-old RV or something. So those are tools that we can all talk about. That kind of came out of that study that the ASU student did for the mobile home study that she did.
Sure.
And again, make it an optional, so you're not saying every RV park is going to have this zoning. You just say, here's a tool, we've already created it for you, it's available for your use.
Yeah, I think, as a whole, we need to get, because it's kind of what we struggle with as a commission here, is we have a general plan, and it's very general. We all have different visions of what we want in the downtown area as a community. Some of us want this, some of us want that. I see it from the council. I see it from our community members, everybody. As a community, I think we need to kind of get together better as a community and get a better, clearer vision of what we actually want in our downtown. Because to certain members, we want this as a community, not just members on this board, but as a community, certain people have ideas of this is what our downtown needs to look like, and to other people, this is what it needs to look like. And, and it affects the community, depending on where you live and everything, because, relative to where you live out there. So I think that's where, we have to get a vision of what we as a community want our downtown to look like. And I don't really think we have a clear image as a community as to what we want our downtown to really look like. We have ideas, and we have a lot of different ideas. And that's what makes it hard when a lot of these things come up, especially right now when we're hearing this first kind of big development in our downtown area. It's like, well, you know, does this really belong in there or does it not? I mean, we want to do what's best for the community, and does it really fit with what goes in there? And I think that's what we're all trying to decipher. Does this go well? And we all have different opinions, and we hear from different community members, and we're all trying to make the best decision from what we're getting input from. And I think it kind of depends on where you live and who you deal with and what your interests are. And that's what's tough about it, because it is a general plan. It's not a specific plan.
Chair?
Yes, Commissioner Cantwell.
Couple of questions. If we were to start right now and say we want to develop a plan for a downtown district, how long does that take? My guess is what, a year, if you're lucky?
Well, no, I think you shouldn't take longer than a year, because you lose interest, the community, just like, you have to make it some sort of urgency. And a planning process, I mean, I was involved in a comprehensive plan, not a general plan, but very specific. One hadn't been done for the city for 40 years, and we took, I think it was a total of 22 months. But we had a 25-person committee. That was a long process. So anything like for this specific area, smaller area, I think 12 months, or you lose your audience, you lose your focus, you lose everything. So if we started today, you know, we have to get a request for proposals out on the street, so before the public sees it, there's a lot of work in the background. So, but the public process, to me, can be short and intense, or, you know, 7 to 8 months, in my opinion.
Okay. Second question is, there's quite a bit of county and state land in that downtown area. Particularly with the county land, is that perpetually going to be, open, maybe park, or is that developable? What kind of assets are we looking at there in terms of what can be developed?
The city has been looking at some sort of retention. They're working with the county for a retention basin there. So I think there's 17 acres south and east of the roundabout. So that's probably going to be open space, because it solves a lot of problems downstream in the other parts of the downtown to try to capture some of that water up here.
There's also an area north and west of downtown, isn't there?
Well, state land is right outside the building here. The
Yeah.
fence is just not too far from here. And then on the north side, and so basically northwest of Highway 88, that's all state land.
Yeah, and that will never be developed?
No, the state, this is developed, the state, we bought it. I don't know if we went to auction or not, but, yeah, so we have to buy it just like any other buyer.
If somebody comes up with the right price?
No, you have to go through the state auction process so that it gets vetted at the state board of land, whatever they are, they have to vote on it to put it up for sale, and then it goes, about a year later, it goes up to auction, because they have to get appraisals, they have to do a lot of work. There's no sewer and water up there, but
Right.
that doesn't, so it's not immediate development, but it could happen. But again, this is the boundary we have proposed for the downtown, took it to this body, took it to the council, that purple blob is the downtown. At some point, could it be bigger, or an extension, or,
And I think that-
again, somebody mentioned, well, should it even be here? As all this stuff happens, and we add 30,000 residents down there, well, maybe it should be at Southern and Idaho on 120 acres instead of 120 acres up here. This is historically our downtown. I'm not advocating that, but if development happens, if the community really wants a town center, then, you can make one, like as developers do, and they've made new towns and new town center. I mean, to me, this is the heart of the city, this is where all the effort should go, but I think it's, you know, if you're throwing ideas out there, someone could say, well, if everything is suburban scale, one-story building, is it really a downtown? So,
And in our discussion, you mentioned that there's 2 other proposals that are likely to come before us, that are, what, north of Fry's, I think,
yep,
that are going to be coming up at some point in the future. That's going to fill up what? 20% of that purple area? 10% of that purple area?
I don't have the total acreage, but that's 22 acres, that site. But I would say it might be a fifth of it, I don't know, because then you really just have the old hotel site, you have the 17 acres of the Nest property, you have redevelopment opportunities with the old A.J. Bayless site, so,
Okay. Just kind of curious, I just, trying to define the magnitude.
but it all starts with a master planning process, and so yes, we can't just have a magic wand and say, oh, here it is, it's a year-long process if we start, and the problem is that we haven't started yet, and we were occupied by something else over the last 6 months, and
It also sounds like
we did get money in the budget, though, I mean, not a lot, and so the money we have at $50,000 doesn't get you a big, long process, but in the zoning code, we only put 100,000 in there, so we're really talking about, trying to find some money. To me, that's, when we put the budget together last year, it was pre-COVID and didn't know how much revenue was coming in, and so it was this, hopefully they're placeholders, maybe there's some general revenue that we expand those projects, and again, it depends on, there's just so much coming at us right now that to do it justice, we're gonna need some outside help, I think.
Yeah, well, we also have a leadership change coming up in, 3 months, is it?
Well, I don't know. Rudy, are you going somewhere? I'm more of a follower than a leader. but-
All of this just
Yeah.
kind of.
No, I'm trying to set the table. The next person needs to know what the community expectations are. They can watch this video and say, geez, I don't want to apply for that job, or maybe I do, because this is exciting. There's a lot of stuff going on, and they can try to, help the city, grow and prosper.
Okay,
But yeah, the goal would be to try to get these RFPs out, January, February, but that's 2 at the same time. So working on those. And we're updating our impact fees right now, so we have that study going on that's just getting started too, so.
Yeah, Larry,
But I'll do a little more, get you some more information about that statute if I can find it, and explain kind of how it works a little better. But maybe it's not the right tool. I don't know. It is an option.
yeah, Larry, just a quick comment. I look at this a lot of ways in terms of the trends, if you will. I think when I joined the Planning and Zoning Commission, 8, 9 years ago, I don't think anyone was necessarily anticipating all of this happening. I think, with recent developments, I believe, as these other cities, Chandler and Gilbert and all, they've started to reach their development capacity, it's moving out in this direction, which is good, but now all of a sudden to me, it seems like this is accelerated, and I guess part of that is maybe helping to kind of make certain that we're understanding what will this, obviously with the annex property, that's going to be a long-term situation, but I guess for me, part of it is just catching up with this. It's like, man, I maybe it's just me, but I did not anticipate that of the opportunities for development occurring so quickly in that city, in our downtown.
And again, Brian will
area.
tell you a lot of that happened in Santan Valley, but I mean, we've done the general plan, which was done in 2010, again in 2020. Zoning code was done in 2006 and 14, but it's not like carved on a tablet, so you do have to update them. And each time I think the zoning code has gotten better, but is there always room for improvement? Sure. I think we had the tools for the MPC that was built into the general plan, so we're maybe more prepared for that at least from a zoning annexation standpoint, but the city has always struggled with what to do with a downtown, and whether we had some sort of plan that was more specific 5 years ago, would it have been perfect? It wouldn't have been then either, but I think if the city does want to have a downtown, then, again, I'm just showing you there's some tools here through zoning that could help, in addition to some master plan.
Good, okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? All right, thank you very much, Larry, appreciate that. I'm sorry.
I'd like to point out that it's Dirk's birthday today.
Oh, that's right,
As
yes.
a board, we'd like to wish him happy birthday.
Dirk, happy.
Happy birthday.
Ooh, code of conduct. Point of order, Mr. Chair.
That's like rolling your eyes.
Camera's caught that rolling of the eyes.
Yeah, it's like rolling his eyes. No,
I have officially stopped having birthdays 30 years ago.
I know. Amen for that, yeah, okay.
Unless, of course, you have presents. And then I will accept those on any day of the year.
So before we get, happy birthday, by the way. So we probably won't have a meeting November 23rd, just letting you know. You can still vote to have it, but we'll probably cancel it. We don't
I
have
think
pending items.
Not having one on the 23rd is a good idea.
All right,
because
so-
of the proximity of the.
Huh?
Didn't we have?
Oh, wait. Yeah, we do have an item. Keystone, this one right over here. I'm sorry.
Oh, man, Rudy.
I'm sorry, yeah. So we're going to have a meeting on the 23rd.
All right, then,
It's probably
Yeah.
gonna be a nice, big, long one.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
All
I
right,
forgot
so then-
about that. For some reason, I didn't think we'd have an item. But yes, that's one that was referred to a date certain. Yep,
right, we did.
continued.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so then we'll, next item is selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on November 23rd, 2021 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
Okay.
In the event that there are no items to be brought forward to the commission, this meeting may be canceled, notification of cancellation properly posted, and the commission notified by staff.
Very good, thank you. I have a motion, do I hear a second?
Second.
I have a second, roll call, Rudy.
Commissioner Cross,
Yes.
Commissioner Gage,
Yes.
Commissioner Barker. Commissioner Begeman,
Yes.
Commissioner Cantwell,
Yes.
Vice Chair Hanchey,
Yes.
Chairman Heck.
Yes,
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
very good, thank you all right? Meeting adjourned.